Welcome, Pewter Report readers, viewers, and listeners to a brand new edition of the Pewter Report podcast, energized by Celsius, the official energy drink of pewterreport.com. It is a Monday edition of the show, a new week. We're going to recap what went on last night in the Super Bowl between the Eagles and the Kansas City Chiefs. And since the Bucs once again play the Chiefs this season, we're going to take a look at the 2025 opponents for the Buccaneers, and of course, answer all super chats, questions, and get into roll call as well. So I'm your host, Matt Matera. Joined with me is the face that runs the place at pewterreport.com. It's SR, Scott Reynolds. Hello, Scott. How we doing?
Doing good. Just like Vita Vea sacking Jalen Hurts. You know, the Buccaneers have kind of owned the Eagles, and they'll play them again this year. So they've got the Super Bowl champions on deck for yet another year because the Bucs played the Chiefs this past season. Chiefs won the Super Bowl, of course. And matter of fact, the Bucs played all four of the top teams in the NFL last year. The Final Four, the Lions, the Ravens, the Chiefs, and of course the who's the other team?
Commanders.
49ers. Yeah. I'm talking about this past season, right? From the four.
Oh, I see.
The Final Four from the previous year, right?
Gotcha.
So
yeah.
A little bit of an easier schedule. I kind of did a Pewter Pulse on this, but we're going to dive into this topic because that was about a month ago when the schedule, or I shouldn't say the schedule, the opponents were known. The schedule will come out after the draft, typically the first or second week of May. So we'll kind of dive into that, but we'll take a look at who the Buccaneers play in 2025 and just kind of set the stage a little bit. This is the 50th year of the Buccaneer franchise. That's pretty cool. So maybe the Buccaneers will make some magic in season number 50. They became the first team to host and win a Super Bowl back in 2020 when they beat the Kansas City Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes dishing out his first Super Bowl loss, first of two now after last night's drubbing by the Philadelphia Eagles. So we'll see. Spoiler alert, the Eagles are the only playoff team that will be coming to Raymond James Stadium next year, right? So we're going to dive into that as well. So lots of really good conversation today. We want to invite your comments, super chats, and questions as always. We're going to do roll call at 420. I've got a very fun and positive topic that I'm going to dish out today. So let's get the show started. We appreciate everybody joining us. It is not a victory Monday, but wasn't a loss either unless you're from the Chiefs Kingdom, Matt.
Yeah, that was a very interesting Super Bowl game last night. And it's very odd, right? Because I think, and the Bucs are tied into this a little bit with Tom Brady for sure, but it feels like there's been an ongoing comparison between the Patriots dynasties and Tom Brady specifically, and now the Chiefs run with Patrick Mahomes, and that's where the Bucs get tied in because Mahomes and Brady played against each other in the Super Bowl in Tampa, and the Bucs won, and that's another Super Bowl for Tom Brady. But it's the part that's crazy to me, and we can talk about the Eagles-Chiefs game as well, is that, like, even in the Super Bowl losses that Tom Brady has had, they're like very small. Like the margin of defeat is it's been like less than 3 points or whatever it's been. Patrick Mahomes, I'm not taking anything away from him. He's a future Hall of Famer already. But it's a little surprising to me that in the two Super Bowl losses that he's had, it's been absolute complete blowouts.
Yeah.
Like not even competitive type of games. So hats have to go off to the Eagles, specifically that defense. I mean, halfway through the game, pretty much right up until halftime, I'm like, wow, like the MVP it has to be a defensive player based on what's going on. And then Jalen Hurts obviously turned it on, but that was an absolute drubbing of a game. It was the biggest blowout really since the Bucs beat the Chiefs.
Yeah.
I think, if you look at the last decade of Super Bowls, it was Seattle dismantling Denver when they played at MetLife Stadium. It was the Bucs beating the Chiefs. And then last night's game is like the three biggest blowouts in really the last decade of Super Bowls. It's crazy. Like Saquon Barkley did not have that good of a game. Like the Chiefs put all their chips into stopping Saquon, but Jalen Hurts had a great game, fantastic with his legs. A.J. Brown was great. Jahan Dotson almost had the first touchdown of the game. I was about to lose my mind. Jalen Hurts' first touchdown.
Okay.
The Eagles just tons of weapons, great offensive line, and their defense to me really stole the show. So
Yeah.
one for Kansas City. I think they'll be all right. Like in the long run, I still think they're going to be knocking on the door every single season. But man, the Eagles just what a win, a dominating force.
Yeah, and I tell you too, when you look at Jason Light and how he's built the Buccaneers in the trenches with all those draft picks, especially the offensive line, right? I mean, this is the second time the Chiefs' offensive line has really let them down when it mattered the most. And Todd Bowles went against his tendencies. He didn't really blitz Patrick Mahomes much in Super Bowl 55 here in Tampa. And, we saw Shaq Barrett run wild against Mahomes and have a sack and, I don't know, like 47 pressures or something like that. It was ridiculous, and the Todd Bowles did blitz, I think 6 plays or something like that, but he pretty much did what the Eagles did, play cover 2, play some quarters, and let that 4-man pass rush feast. And yes, the Chiefs didn't have both of their starting offensive tackles in that game. I mean, that's not the Bucs' fault, right? I mean, You're playing who you're playing, and whoever's healthy is healthy, right? That's just how it is. But Mahomes was harassed into an awful night against the Chiefs. Even more so is the fact that he didn't even find the end zone. I mean, they have 3 touchdowns last night in garbage time, right?
Yeah.
I mean, he had 3 field goals against the Buccaneers, right? Devin White picked off his last pass into the end zone and prevented them from getting on the board. I understand that in the first half of the Eagles' win over the Chiefs was more dominant. Like, I get that. But I'll say this, to not allow Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs into the end zone, and at the end of the day, I think that score was like in all 4 quarters. I'm probably more impressed with the Buccaneers win over the Chiefs than I am the Eagles. The Eagles' first half was dominant. I mean, take nothing away from that. What did Kansas City have? Less than 20 yards by halftime? I mean, that's
they had one first down. They got a first down on the first play when they had the ball on offense, and then did not get another first down. They didn't get over midfield, I think, until the fourth quarter.
Right.
So it's an interesting way to look at it, right? And again, you're kind of splitting hairs, like, no, the Bucs defense is better, the Eagles defense is better.
Yeah.
It was 2 great defenses.
They were both great. There's no doubt.
Yeah. It felt like, and again, we are prisoners of the moment. Everybody is.
Yeah.
It felt like the biggest impact was probably more the Eagles and what they did to Mahomes in that first half specifically. The pick 6, an interception literally on his next pass on the next drive.
Yeah.
But if you're talking 4 quarters long term, there's no denying, the Bucs brought it the whole game. Not that the Eagles didn't, in the fourth quarter, because also you got to give credit. And I think that's a little bit different too with the Bucs Chiefs Super Bowl was the Bucs pulled away as the game went later on, but at halftime it was still somewhat of a competitive game where Eagles Chiefs, it was just like, this is, unless the Chiefs score a touchdown on their opening drive in the second half, this is absolutely done. But there's no denying, no touchdowns allowed by the Bucs. I think everyone remembers Devin White taking his helmet off and throwing it after he got the interception. That's something that the Bucs will be able to brag about. I mean, it'll be brought up when Patrick Mahomes goes into the Hall of Fame, right? Like,
that's right.
Yeah, he had this X and X record in the Super Bowl, but he never scored a touchdown against the Bucs.
Yeah, and so when Patrick Mahomes was asked prior to the Super Bowl the other night, what is there a loss that keeps you up at night? And he said, pretty easy, Tampa. Well, now he's got 2. And I think the Eagles' loss stings more than this one because they had a chance to make history. They had a chance to three-peat, right? And so they had a chance to go back-to-back with Super Bowl wins. In Super Bowl 55 against Kansas City or against Tampa Bay, they were denied. But that one last night has got to sting even worse because that was Mahomes' 5th Super Bowl, right? It was a monumental opportunity for him to really start to catch Brady. And now it's like, I'm going to get to that during the rant here in about 6 minutes for a roll call. But yeah, I mean, the chance to do something that no other team, not even Tom Brady and the Patriots, were able to do, win 3 in a row, and be denied, that's soul crushing right there. So I think in some ways last night's loss is going to be worse for Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs than the Super Bowl loss was to Tampa Bay.
He's got to thank his lucky stars that he had some of those big throws to Xavier Worthy late in the game, because his stat line, it was like 60 passing yards and 2 interceptions going into the fourth quarter. That would have been like historically bad. Yeah. And people are still saying it's like the worst performance of Patrick Mahomes' career. And I'm not really to argue that one way or another. But like 60 yards and 2 interceptions was just absolutely awful. I don't understand why the Chiefs didn't run the ball at all. I know they got stuffed when they ran it, but in the first half they had run the ball like 3 times. Yeah. But again, that's not really my problem. But historic performance by the Eagles. I think the attention should be more on them than it is the Chiefs. But we are talking about history. There's been a lot more pomp and circumstance with the Chiefs. Oh yeah, that Bucs Chiefs Super Bowl.
No doubt.
Swift's in the mix. The Mahomes have balloons even further. So pretty wild game, but a little bit sad too. Now football's done. 208 days.
And you know what? For someone like say Josh Sweat, who had a fantastic game last night, right? I mean, he was phenomenal in chasing Patrick Mahomes, getting a couple of sacks, really kind of added a little bit more fuel to his free agent fire. He's going to make a lot of money in free agency as an edge rusher, and we'll see if Tampa Bay's interested or not. Florida State kid, by the way. But the thing is, he was robbed, I think, a little bit, just like how Shaq Barrett was robbed, right? Because the sacks in both of these Super Bowls were kind of split up. He didn't have like that 4-sack game where he would be the clear, easy MVP. So kind of like how Brady got it. And listen, Tom Brady threw 3 touchdowns in the first half of that win over Kansas City, including 2 to Gronkowski to get things going, right? Then he threw another one right before halftime to Antonio Brown to put some more points on the board. But, it's not that Brady didn't deserve the Super Bowl MVP. He did, and he got it. But I think a lot of people were saying, well, the Bucs defense, right? Well, Todd Bowles, if you can give it to Todd Bowles. We heard that last night with Vic Fangio. And even Jalen Hurts said defense wins championships. And so it's like, I appreciate that from Jalen Hurts, because even though he did win it, he kind of won it by default because he played exceptionally well, taking nothing away from him. But you're looking for one individual, the most valuable player, and that's hard to do when Milton Williams has 2 sacks and Jordan Davis has a sack and Zach Bond has an interception and is your leading tackler and Josh Sweat has a couple of sacks. When it's all spread out like that and the entire defense and Vic Fangio is just destroying Patrick Mahomes, erasing Travis Kelce, right? You feel for that because you want to give it to the Eagles defense, but they're looking for one guy. So it kind of defaults to the quarterback. And we saw that a little bit in Tampa Bay in Super Bowl 55.
No, 100%. The quarterback gets the benefit of, if you are on the winning team in the Super Bowl, if there's not like a true standout moment, the tie goes to the quarterback, and they just end up giving it to the quarterback. What Josh Sweat would have needed was like a Von Miller type of performance when the Broncos defeated the Panthers, like that big strip sack, forced fumble for a touchdown. And the Eagles did have their turnovers. That's why I was thinking, if Cooper DeJean had a way,
pick 6,
if he found another way to get an interception, I think there would have been a case for him to win Super Bowl MVP. But as you said, you can only give it to one person. It's probably a little unfair because the defense was the main catalyst. I even go back to when the Rams won. They gave it to Cooper Kupp, and Cooper Kupp had a great game. Don't get me wrong. But Aaron Donald should have won the Super Bowl MVP. Yes. But when the voting gets done, it's before like the last play and the last drive, which also kind of makes me think, well, what happens if a team scores on, in the final seconds? Like, do you have to recast your vote? Like,
well, and I think that was the problem with Super Bowl 37 for Dexter Jackson won because he had 2 first-half interceptions, and they pretty much at the time they ended the voting starting at the fourth quarter, which is just absolutely asinine. Like the fourth quarter doesn't matter, it doesn't count, and yet so you had 2 pick sixes by Dwight Smith, including one to seal the win, and not seal. They'd already won by then, but I mean, he made Super Bowl history with 2 pick sixes. Like, no one's going to beat that. There might be somebody that will tie that. There's not going to be anybody that's going to get 3 pick sixes in the Super Bowl, right? And I've had that discussion with Dwight Smith about it, and I said, do you feel like you got robbed, because there's only one Super Bowl MVP? And he's like, no. He said, I don't feel like I got robbed at all, because my good friend Dexter Jackson won it, and there's actually not one Super Bowl MVP. There's a Super Bowl MVP every year that there's a Super Bowl. But there's only one person who's got 2 pick sixes in the Super Bowl, and that's me. And that's a record that no one's going to beat. So it's like, for me to have a lone Super Bowl record out of every Super Bowl that's ever been played and everyone that will be played, like, I'd rather have that. And I thought that's a pretty cool perspective. That's a cool way for Dwight Smith to take a look at that.
It absolutely is. He's in rarefied air. We may never see anyone tie that as well. And it makes for a great trivia question if you're, at trivia night or something like that. So every Bucs fan has to make sure they get that answer right. And it's cool that the Bucs have that part of history as well with Dwight Smith. So, fun reminiscing about the Super Bowl for sure.
And 3 pick sixes in that Super Bowl. Derek Brooks had one too. And Derek Brooks' Super Bowl is actually the dagger. That was the one that pretty much was the nail in the coffin. They just had to kind of play out the fourth quarter. But so 3 pick sixes, 5 interceptions total of Rich Gannon, who was the NFL MVP that year. I'll remind you, like, that was crazy that we saw that. But very, very cool to see Tampa Bay 2-0 in Super Bowls, right? I mean, it's one thing, to be like the Falcons and go to the Super Bowl and never win. Same with the Panthers. They've never won a Super Bowl, right? And for the Buccaneers you've only been to 2. Okay, that's fine, but you've won both of them, and you won both of them in blowout fashion. Like, that's pretty cool. So I think Buccaneer fans, as we enter year 50, have got something to be super excited about the team's past and the future, because this team is still very much a contender. We'll talk about that on the other side of today's roll call, Matt, because you're a little up in arms about the Super Bowl odds, and let's get to that. But first, it is 420, so we need to do a thing we do that makes Mondays fun. It's a thing we call
roll call. Yep, we do this every single Monday right around 420. We love interacting with our fans as much as we possibly can, and we have fans all over the globe too, which is really cool to see. So every Monday during roll call, one of us goes on a conversation about the Bucs or the NFL. And in the meantime, if you want to put in the chat where you are watching the show from, like Christopher Cole has done with Bartow, Florida, we will put it up on the screen and give a couple of special shout outs as well. So today, Scott is going to bring up a conversation that he wants to get into about the Bucs. I think this one has a little Bucs history involved with it. And Scott, whenever you're ready, we will get it rocking and rolling.
Oh, it sure does, Matt. It's Tom Brady versus Patrick Mahomes in the Super Bowl, the tale of the tape, the 3 stats that I think really matter in all of this, right? Tom Brady started off with a 3-2 Super Bowl record. Okay, so let's keep this in perspective here. And we're not really crapping on Patrick Mahomes. He's the best quarterback presently in the game today. I think if you were starting a fantasy football draft, if you were an NFL team and you got to start with any particular player, you probably start with Patrick Mahomes. I'm not talking fantasy football, really. I'm talking about like if you're doing real life Madden, right? And you had your first pick, who do you want to be your quarterback? I think most people would probably pick Patrick Mahomes, and that would probably be the right answer. Just like back in the day, it would have been Tom Brady, or back before him, it would have been Joe Montana, right? So Patrick Mahomes is in the unenviable spot of being 3-2 right now in 5 Super Bowl appearances. That was Tom Brady's record before Brady went on a run. He was 4-1 in his last 5 Super Bowl appearances. So there's still plenty of time for Mahomes to catch Tom Brady, and that's, of course, what he's doing. He's chasing greatness. But, man, you look at Brady's touchdowns in the Super Bowls that he's been in, those 10 Super Bowls. Brady only threw 6 interceptions, and he had 21 touchdowns. And keep in mind that the only real blowout win that Brady was involved in any of those 6 Super Bowls with the Patriots I want to say it was like a 4-point win, maybe. His only blowout was the Buccaneers. It's the only game that really wasn't close. Remember, he had the comeback in overtime against the Falcons, the close defensive-minded game against the Rams. You had the game that was sealed with Butler's interception at the goal line against the Seahawks. Right, he's been in a lot of tight Super Bowl games. Patrick Mahomes has been blown out in 2 Super Bowl losses. I mean, big time. Even the Super Bowls that Brady lost, they were by a combined 12 points in 3 losses. Patrick Mahomes has been blown out twice in his Super Bowl losses. He has lost by a combined 40 points in both of those losses, 2 Tampa Bay and 2 Philadelphia. And if you look at the stat line that matters most, the quarterback's job to get wins is to put touchdowns on the board and don't beat your team by throwing interceptions. Brady has done that 21-6. Mahomes in 5 Super Bowls has only thrown 10 touchdowns with 7 interceptions. So that's not exactly, a stellar performance by Patrick Mahomes when it comes to the Super Bowl, record, the touchdowns, interceptions, especially the combined loss total. He's been blown out twice. The only blowout that Tom Brady was in was against this guy, and that was in Super Bowl 55 by the score of 31-9. Todd Bowles gets the assist. Tom Brady, 3 touchdowns in the first half, got him the MVP. So I think we need to put a pause on all the GOAT talk just for right now. Take nothing away from Patrick Mahomes. He's a very, very good player. Who knows what the future is going to hold, though, for he and the Chiefs. They've got some work to do. Travis Kelce looked like an old man. DeAndre Hopkins should not return. Hopefully they'll get Rashee Rice back next year, healthy. Xavier Worthy looks like a player, right? He was the only guy doing anything offensively for Kansas City. Pacheco is a good back. Kareem Hunt, he's on the downside of his career. That offensive line needs some help. How much longer is Chris Jones going to play? He's into his 30s. How much more effective is he going to be? They might lose some players in free agency, just like the Eagles might. But Philly is pretty well positioned to make another run at this thing in 2025. But one thing they're going to have to do, Matt, Philly's going to have to go through Tampa Bay, in Tampa Bay again. And that's proven to be difficult because the Eagles have lost 5 out of their last 6 games to Tampa Bay. And the only one that they won was in Tampa Bay on Monday night back in week 3 in 2023, 25-11. Then they got absolutely waxed in the playoffs that year, 32-9 in the wild card playoff win by Tampa Bay. And then last year was a 33-16 in week 4 in a very hot game at Raymond James Stadium. One of the few losses that Philly suffered last year. But I just think the Buccaneers, Todd Bowles, might have the Eagles number. I know they've been missing some of their receivers in those games. I'm sure that plays a role. It kind of makes them a little bit more one-dimensional. But Saquon Barkley did not run wild against the Chiefs defense, nor did he run wild against Tampa Bay's defense either back in week 4.
That's true. He had like one big run, but it was towards the later in the game when the Bucs pretty much all had it wrapped up. And it's funny because there's a stat that people were posting even before the Super Bowl. They were talking about Nick Sirianni, and it's like, all Nick Sirianni does is he either goes to the Super Bowl or loses to the Bucs in the first round. Like there is no other way. Because if you recall in 2021,
that's right.
That was, in my opinion, the best team that the Bucs had with Tom Brady. They beat the Eagles in the first round.
They did.
Then the Eagles went to the Super Bowl, lost to Kansas City. Then obviously the Bucs had that great Monday night game with Baker Mayfield, and then this year they won the Super Bowl. So there's no doubt about it. That's going to be one of the toughest tests that the Bucs have this upcoming season. And that's what makes, obviously we know who the opponents are for the Bucs, but that's what makes the sorting out of the schedule so interesting too. Because sometimes, and in my opinion, it's better to play one of the, considered great teams or the better teams. It's better to play them early in the season while they're still trying to figure things out than later on in the year. And I think the Bucs took advantage of that going up against the Lions in week 2.
Agreed.
this most recent season. Of course, Super Bowl hangovers are a legitimate thing. Will that impact the Eagles? I mean, the last time they went to the Super Bowl, they started out great, but then they went 1-6 down the stretch, including that loss to the Bucs in the postseason. So will that happen again? Will some of the free agent losses by the Eagles impact the team early on in the season, or some of the other good teams that the Bucs, end up playing this year? So that's why the schedule formulation is so important as well. But yeah, it should be a challenging 2025 for the Buccaneers and who's on their schedule. And we'll see what this team could do with Josh Grizzard and obviously Todd Bowles. And yeah, should be exciting.
Yeah, and we have more exciting podcasts for you coming up this week. This is going to be a really fun one here. So let's talk about some of the shows we have on deck here. So tomorrow, what can the Bucs learn from the Eagles? Well, they know how to beat them. Can they join them? Can they join them in the later in the playoffs? Can they get out of round one? The Eagles certainly did that. They made all the way to the Super Bowl and they won. Can the Buccaneers do that as well? I feel pretty good about them beating the Eagles in the regular season, but it's getting past the wild card round, which is something that Tampa Bay has struggled to do. They've had 3 wild card games under Todd Bowles. They've only won 1, so that is their issue that they have to address. And then that's tomorrow at 2 o'clock. I'm sorry, 2 o'clock. Tuesday at 4 o'clock. There we go. Tuesday, 4 o'clock. Wednesday at 4 o'clock. Could the Bucs run game get better in 2025? What does Josh Grizzard have in store for Tampa Bay's run game? Or is he going to be a little bit more pass happy because he's a pass game coordinator? We have that for you as well. Then we have a couple of draft-minded shows for you. That's right. It is draft week for us here at Pewter Report. We have our mock draft coming out. And a little bit of a spoiler alert here, so just hang on to your seat here, folks. We don't typically do this, but with our second mock draft, we're actually going to explore the Bucs making a big trade. I can tell you exactly where that trade is going to happen, for what round, and what the rest of the draft is going to look like. If you guess it's Cincinnati edge rusher Trey Hendrickson, you might be right, but this is a special 8:30 show sponsored by Walk-Ons. Josh Capo and I will have our second Pewter Report 7-round Bucs mock draft coming out on Thursday at 5 p.m., right after our Thursday show here. And then at 8:30 that night, we'll talk about it. We'll answer your questions. We'll break down all of our picks, go inside the trade, and all of our processes that went into place there. So that is Thursday night at 8:30 here on Pewter Report TV. Then Josh Capo returns with Adam Slavon, and Real Buck Talks Michael Pless doing a Sunday morning 9 a.m. live Bucs mock draft. That's right, using the mock draft simulator once again. It was fun. They did an all Senior Bowl mock draft 2 Sundays ago. This Sunday, it's going to be more of like a regular mock draft, not Senior Bowl player specific. So it'll be interesting to see how the Buccaneers draft with Josh and Adam and Michael handling the general manager duties there. So that is Sunday morning, 9 a.m. for a live Bucs mock draft. So lots of great content as we inch closer, Matt, to the NFL Scouting Combine, which will take place the last week of this month in February here. And now that the 2025 season kind of officially begins with the end of the Super Bowl and the 2024 season, the Buccaneers, they've got to be favorites in the NFC, right? I mean, at least up there with the Commanders and the Lions and the Eagles, right?
You would think, but that is not the case, unfortunately. So a big part of the Super Bowl, oddly enough, is when the game ends, everybody wants to know who's the favorite for the Super Bowl next season. And understandably, the 2 teams that just played in it are typically at the top. Actually, the Chiefs have the best odds, and they're tied with the Baltimore Ravens as well. So Las Vegas is quite high on Lamar Jackson and Baltimore, despite the second-round exit this year. But of course, Bucs fans want to know, and I want to know where the Bucs are, ranked with the other teams in the league. And each site is a little bit different. So the ones I was looking at was BetMGM, ESPN Bet. BetMGM has the Buccaneers at plus 4,000 to win the Super Bowl. ESPN Bet has them at plus 3,500. So Plus 4,000 for those that don't bet means if you were to put $100 on the Bucs to win the Super Bowl, you would win $4,100. In other terms, you would win a payout of $4,000. My issue isn't necessarily those odds specifically. My issue is that the Bucs are there are 14 other teams that have better odds than the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. It's the Eagles, Ravens, Chiefs, Bills, Lions, 49ers, Commanders, Packers, Bengals, Chargers, Rams, Houston Texans, Denver Broncos, Minnesota Vikings, tied with the Bucs. So those are 14 teams ahead of the Bucs. Also tied with the Bucs are the Chicago Bears at plus 4,000.
Wow.
And that I just cannot wrap my head around.
Yeah, that's crazy, man.
I understand if you don't want to put the Bucs in the top 5 with the Eagles and the Ravens and the Bills. I understand that. But we're talking about a 5-win Chicago Bears team.
Yeah.
That is going to probably lose Keenan Allen, who was a pretty good target for Caleb Williams.
Right.
I don't know how much better their defense is going to be. How are you putting the Bucs on the same playing level as the Chicago Bears? When you look at all the teams that made the postseason this most recent season, the Bucs have the second worst odds out of all the other teams. The only one that had worse was the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Yeah.
You're telling me that the Bucs, who just won the division and have been to the playoffs 5 seasons in a row, have worse odds than some of these other teams? I don't understand that aspect of it. I don't understand as well.
Is it Todd Bowles, Matt? Is it Vegas maybe not having confidence in some of the game management, the clock management, or his defense? What is your thought process behind it? Like, why do you think that's the case?
So I think it's 2 things. One of them is just not the belief in Todd Bowles and the fact that he has some in-game management issues. The fact that they go on these peaks and valleys of win streaks, which is good, but the losing streaks and getting upset late in the season like they did to the Cowboys tends to nip at the Bucs' heels time and time again. I also think they probably factor in Josh Grizzard a little bit, who just got promoted to be the Bucs offensive coordinator. And while we think he's a bright mind and we understand the impact that he had as the passing game coordinator and being great with third down, which he was in charge of, and the Bucs have the best third down percentage in the league, he still is a first-time play caller that is only going to learn as the season goes on. So
it's kind of crazy though. Ben Johnson's a first-time head coach, right? Ben Johnson. It's one thing to sit there and say, okay, he's a rookie head coach. Dan Quinn was a first-year head coach in Washington, but he had been a head coach before, right, with the Falcons and taking them to the Super Bowl. I mean, it's just like that's astonishing that Vegas thinks that the Bears are on the same level as the Buccaneers, especially with Ben Johnson coming.
To me,
nuts.
To me, that's insane. It's also crazy because when you think about it, like Baker's coming off the best statistical year of his career with the 4,500 passing yards and 41 touchdowns. Mike Evans is back. You have a top 5 offensive line that is all under contract except for Ben Bredesen. Bucky Irving just ran for 1,100 yards.
Yeah.
And if you want to say the Bucs defense, and that's part of the reason why their odds have dropped, I get that.
Sure.
But then explain to me how the Cincinnati Bengals, who did not make the playoffs last year, who have even a worse defense than the Bucs have, who still might lose T. Higgins in free agency, one of their best wide receivers.
They're going to trade away their best player on defense.
And probably have to trade Trey Hendrickson, who's their best defensive player. And I get it. They're going to make additions, but you can't say that the Bengals are going to make additions to their defense and the Bucs just aren't. Right. That doesn't make sense to me either. I think the Bucs should have been placed right in that same grouping with the Bengals, with the Commanders, with the Packers, those type of teams. If the Bucs are right then and there, I'd have no issue with that. But it's just crazy to me. You can't put the Bucs with the same odds as the Chicago Bears. I don't care that Ben Johnson's their head coach. We don't know what he's going to do. If he's going to be a good coach, a bad coach, maybe he's just destined to be a play caller. That to me is just asinine. And that's why you can read about it on pewterreport.com. Yeah,
great article on pewterreport.com, Matt. Why don't you copy and paste and drop that in the comments here. We're going to get to the super chats. We're breaking protocol a little bit. Typically, we go right to them, and we appreciate that. They're piling up. But I want to just dovetail right with what Matt said. Let's go right into today's topic, because it's actually going to be kind of brief. because we don't have a schedule yet, because that's not going to come out till mid-May probably. But we do know who the Bucs will play at home and away. And here is the home opponents here. Actually, I think I've got some more updated graphics here. Let me grab those that actually have those those teams on there. I grabbed the wrong ones. But when you have one playoff team that's coming in, you know, and that's the Eagles at home. To me, I look at this and I look at this year's schedule, and we kind of went on record and said with our early predictions, our early look ahead to 2025 without the schedule actually being released. This feels like it's going to be at least 10 wins, if not more. So this is the home opponents here, and you see Cardinals, 49ers, and who knows what the 49ers are going to be. They were on the downhill slide last year. They only won 6 games. I don't have a lot of faith in them. They might be trading Deebo Samuel, and I don't know. I think that I don't say they're past their prime. The NFC West is kind of rough and tumble, right? I mean, the Cardinals, the Seahawks, the Rams, the 49ers, there's a lot of carnage there. Those teams beat each other up. And that's why there hasn't really been like a clear-cut favorite over the last couple of seasons outside of maybe San Francisco for a year or two. But you have the Cardinals, 49ers coming in. Those teams don't necessarily scare me. I think Tampa Bay was super close last year. Remember, didn't have Mike or Chris in that game, lost 23-20. So you give me Mike Evans or Chris Godwin, and the Buccaneers win that game. You give me both, and they definitely win that game. Patriots, not afraid of them. Jets are a dumpster fire. Falcons are going to Falcon. I know they swept the Buccaneers last year. I got to think better defensive play. And remember, again, didn't have Mike or Chris for that Falcons game either, right? So for the one here in Tampa. So the Saints are going to be probably one of the worst teams in the league. The Panthers at home, not afraid of them. And then you have the Eagles, which the Bucs seem to have their number. The Buccaneers went 7-1, franchise best home record in 2021, Matt. That was part of the catalyst for them going 13-4, being dominant at home. Last year, they were 5-4 at home. Who were their losses to? They did lose to the Falcons, but they also lost to the 49ers, to the Ravens, right? And the Broncos. Broncos ended up being a good team, very good team. We thought that was a horrible loss at the beginning of the season. Didn't really end that way. So this is a pretty home, or I should say favorable schedule at home, I think, for Tampa Bay. Again, only the Eagles have made the playoffs out of this. Then you look at the away games, another trip to Detroit. Who knows what they're going to be like with 2 different coordinators there. Still going to be formidable, I think. Houston Texans, a team that really faded without Tank Dell. I'm not really sold on them. You've got the 3 teams in the middle there, the Falcons, the Saints, and the Panthers. Bills is going to be a challenge. Dolphins, I'm still holding out hope that could be in Madrid. I think that'd be cool. Have both Florida teams over there playing in Spain. And then the Seahawks and the Rams, who knows? We'll see. But what is your take on all this, Matt? I mean, this schedule, or I should say these opponents, they don't seem as daunting as last year where you just knew they were going to have trouble getting a winning record against the Lions, the Eagles, the Chiefs, the 49ers, the Ravens, you know, like that was a right. Rough and tumble part of schedule there.
Yeah, definitely a couple thoughts about this. Starting with the home side, obviously the Eagles are going to be the toughest game. Don't get me wrong. I feel a little bit different about the 49ers, though. And you're not wrong with, like, you know, some of the issues that they have, and we'll see what happens with Debo. But the 49ers are a team that have had the Bucs number for a couple of years now. I mean, even going back to Tom Brady's last season.
Yeah.
The 49ers, last year was a close game.
It's getting closer, though, Matt. It's getting closer, I believe.
Right. But if you want to make the case that the Bucs didn't have Mike Evans and Chris Godwin when they played against the 49ers, well, then
true.
You can look at the time when the Bucs beat the Eagles, and the Eagles didn't have Devontae Smith. They didn't have A.J. Brown, and they
That's
didn't
right.
have Lane Johnson. So
Yep.
if you want to
That's
say,
right.
oh, well, it doesn't matter, it's whoever you have, well, then you either have to water down the victory over the Eagles, or you have to, give a little more credit to the 49ers for
That's a
beating
fair
the
point.
Buccaneers. So I just feel like the 49ers suffered from that Super Bowl hangover, and injuries were a big part of it. No doubt about it. But I just think the history of the 49ers, what they've done to the Bucs, worries me a little bit, especially if they're healthy. Completely agree with you with the Jets. They don't even know who their quarterback's going to be. I think the Patriots will be tougher now with Mike Vrabel, and Drake May look pretty good as a rookie, but I still think they're a season away, and they need a lot more weapons on offense before they're, a force to be reckoned with once again. The Cardinals, when I look at the schedule overall, and the Broncos are that example last year, of like, who's that team that on paper looks bad, but then all of a sudden they turn it around?
Yeah.
I'm not saying the Cardinals are that team.
But they could be.
But they could be.
They
exactly.
could be, yeah.
Like Marvin Harrison, year 2, had a really good rookie season, put up like the same numbers as his dad when his dad was a rookie back in the day. Like, that's certainly scary. So I don't think the Cardinals are a pushover the way that, like, the Saints will be.
Yeah.
Intrigued by the Panthers as well. Just will they be a better team?
Yeah.
And then for the away games, the Rams are another team that have just had the Bucs number when they've played really in the past couple of years. But at the same time, the Rams are such an odd team with, like, they could look amazing, and at other times they get one injury and they just look horrible, and they don't know how to, like, function as a team. So it's going to be very touch and go with the Rams. I don't know.
Probably not going to have Cooper Kupp either, right? Don't you feel like they're going to?
Well,
trade him
they
this
want to trade
offseason?
him. So they'll be a man down.
Have Puka Nacua, right?
On offense.
Yeah.
But yeah, the Bills and the Lions certainly stand out. The Texans, when they're healthy, I think are a little more formidable. Their
defense is good.
Tough. But yeah, those are the biggest things. The Dolphins, again, kind of candy ass soft. We'll see what happens with them. But it's certainly a more attainable schedule this season for the Bucs than it was last year.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at this, right, and let's go back to the home schedule here, and let's just project. Let's say they're not going to go 7-1, but let's say they go 6-2. Okay,
yeah, that's fair.
6-2, like that seems like a reasonable number at home. 6-2 there, and what do we say? 11 wins, right? That would be the next step up for Todd Bowles, right? To go from 10 wins in the regular season. Are there 5 wins here, right? Let's start at the bottom. Saints. They play exceptionally well in New Orleans, right? So there's 1. Falcons, they should atone for that loss last year, right? So there's at least 2. The Dolphins, I'm with you. There's 3. And then we need to find 3 more wins out of here to.
I mean, I look at Seattle.
2 more wins. 2 more wins out of this, yeah. Right.
So the Seattle Texans, I look as essentially a coin flip game,
right?
Like it could go either way.
Okay, so let's give him 1 there. So now there's 4 wins right there. So now you're at 10 wins. And then if you steal 1 more, you're at 5 wins. Now you're at 11, right? 5 on the road, 6 at home, and you have 11 wins right there. I think that's doable.
Yeah.
Even before the draft and free agency.
I think it absolutely is. And it helps the case for Todd Bowles specifically.
It does. It certainly does. So that's kind of our take right there. We did all of this without being energized by Celsius too, which that's a feat unto itself. So right now we're going to tell you all about the official energy drink at Pewter Report.
Of course, we love Celsius for all of their fantastic flavors. I love the Arctic vibe. We've talked a lot about the Playa vibe or the Playa vibe, which is a pina colada flavor. So shout out to Celsius for all the great flavors that they have. If you need to know where to find a Celsius energy drink, head on over to the Celsius store locator on their website. You can punch in your address of where you're living, where you're staying on vacation, something like that, and it'll tell you the closest location where you can pick one up. Could be a Walmart, a health and fitness store, a Stop and Shop, a Publix, or your bodega.
Bodega.
And after you keep going to your bodega, you know you love Celsius and you want more, you could purchase it in bulk over on Amazon with the subscribe and save. Have it sent to your place of residence whenever you want. I'd recommend the variety pack because there's so many fantastic flavors of Celsius. And set it up at your own leisure. Just make sure you're drinking Celsius energy drinks, the official energy drink of pewterreport.com.
Yeah, we would love to take this opportunity to give thanks to our Pewter Platinum members, as we always do on every show. Scott Federico, Rathel Gordon, Noah Parr, Scotty J, Dave Anderson, Eric McMillan, Zach Jarvis, Hezo813, Ash Fishpool, Joel Elrican, Sam, John Dale Morris, and Zach Brannigan. Thank you very much. And a big thank you to our new Pewter Report TV channel members or members who have recently rejoined or leveled up. Rashad1239, Joshua Shaw, Rich Bucks fan B, Malcolm Harvey, and Ryan H. Thank you very much. And we also have got our Pewter Premier channel members to thank. And we'll let this roll out because we got about 30 of them. So thank you all very much for your support.
Yes.
Josh Capo just came out with a new video. It's his last Bucs 2025 offseason in that series where it looks at free agent targets. So I'm going to drop that in the chat as well. Make sure you have a chance to watch that video. It's 20 minutes long. But man, it's so enthralling, and it's Josh with the spreadsheet again, right? But man, it's like don't let the 20-minute mark fool you because it's worth every minute. It flies by. He is so detailed, and it's so enthralling and captivating what he has to say about how much money, cash the Buccaneers can and will spend this year, and which free agents they could target, and what that looks like. He goes through some sample guys. Shows you what those contracts could look like and how the Buccaneers can make it all fit. This could be the year the Buccaneers really open up the purse strings and the leisure to spend that money. And we'll see what happens ultimately. But that's coming up on Pewter Report TV. I'll drop that in the chat. So after the podcast, make sure you check it out.
Yeah, always fun when you can spend a little bit more. Sometimes buying new things is nice, and the Bucs want to get some great free agent players going into next season. Before we get into these super chats, just real quick, want to give some shout outs from Roll Call today. Richard Taroko watching from Beverly Hills, California. Jack Caraco recently retired in Wellington, Florida. Well, congrats on your retirement, cool. Jack. Grant Weagle, Bismarck, North Dakota. Thanks for all you guys do. Thanks for watching the show, Grant. Appreciate the kind words. Going very international, Ben Wilson from Brisbane, Australia. That's a bad accent, but nonetheless, thank you for watching. Our guy, Nathan Elliott, watching in Bradenton, Florida. E. Rich from Valley Stream, New York, over on Long Island. And Paul Bowen, a Pewter Report YouTube channel member, watching from Prattville, Alabama. And we'll actually start the Super Chats with Paul Bowen as well.
Thank you very much.
Paul for the $4.99, who says, with the performance by the Eagles' defensive line last night, the cost is going to skyrocket for veteran defensive linemen and edge. How fast are these big names going to go?
That always happens, right? It's that flurry of free agency that gets things kicked off. The big deals typically get done during that negotiating period, what they call the legal tampering period. That's going to start on Monday, March 10th, and it will end on Wednesday, March 12th, and that's when you're going to see like all of those deals right when the bell opens for free agency. All those deals are going to come in. They're already going to be talked about and kind of reported on already. But yeah, I think Josh Sweat made himself a lot more money last night. He'll be one of those top tier edge rushers that's going to get paid. And Zach Bond too with the interception. I think both of those Eagle free agents really put the exclamation point on their season. I'd love to see Zach Bond in Tampa. I don't think it's going to happen. He's going to get a king's ransom, but I would love to see it.
I'm a huge fan of Zach Bond, especially because of last night. I did a prop bet of him to record an interception.
Oh, nice.
848. So I was very happy with Zach Bond.
That's fantastic.
When Zach Bond had the interception. I also had Quinyon Mitchell, and I'm like, why didn't I take Cooper DeJean?
Yeah.
But, whatever. Certainly not going to be mad about hitting one of those two.
Right.
But yeah, Zach Bond, would love him in the red and pewter. You may see me write about that kind of soon.
Yeah.
Wink, wink. With a certain article that comes out every week on pewterreport.com.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's one of the. I feel like Zach Bond, Josh Sweat, one of those guys. We'll see who ends up with the Bucs. Steve Shoot, thanks for the $10 super chat. Says Vic Fangio didn't just take a page from Bowles' defensive playbook. He stole the whole damn book. That 4-man pass rush kept getting home, and they flooded the interior zone, which explained Kelsey and the interceptions. The Eagles did not blitz one time
Yeah.
in the game. I think the one time they did, it was negated by a penalty.
Right.
But
Right.
we saw the same exact thing in Tampa a couple of seasons ago. It was Shaq Barrett, JPP, getting after Patrick Mahomes. Obviously, the interior defensive line as well, double teaming Travis Kelce or just trying to take him out of the game with proper coverage. And the blueprint was right then and there when the Bucs did it, but not everybody can duplicate it. And that's why the Chiefs went on to do what they've done recently. But the Eagles obviously put on a masterclass last night.
They sure did. It was fun to see. I didn't really have a dog in the fight. Just want to see a good game. And I love defense. So when the Eagles defense was taken over, I was pretty excited about that.
Yeah, it's really tough to rattle Patrick Mahomes the way that the Eagles did, but they certainly did. Bucs Basement, thank you for the $5 super chat, who says, it doesn't matter the opponent if Bowles doesn't correct his time and game management. The same things that happened the last 2 years will repeat.
Yeah, it's been talked about in the halls of One Buccaneer Place. I know that, I don't know if it was the Glazers or Jason Light or if Bowles came out and said it, I don't know the particulars, but I know that the problem is on the table waiting to be solved. It has been spoken about. And again, I don't know if it was the end of the season meeting with the Glazers, if they brought it up or whatever, but it's not too hard to see, Matt. If we can see it and we're trained journalists that cover this team, and I know the fans see it as well at home. It's got to improve. There's got to be somebody that is smarter than most that can have the quick trigger finger to tell Todd Bowles, go for it here, call the timeout here, don't call the timeout here, don't go for it here, etc. Don't trust your defense. Keep the offense on the field. Whatever the right call is, Todd needs to make those, especially in crunch time situations and big games. And we've seen that not happen with the regularity that has cost this team. And so does that mean that he's going to employ somebody else to do that? Or, whatever. My only concern is, Matt, is let's say there is a designated clock management person on the staff that he is kind of told to listen to. Well, he's the head coach too. He has the ultimate authority if he wants to overrule that, to go with his gut or whatever, right? And so it's one thing to sit there and say, all right, like here's a guy that can do that, but like what happens if in the moment Todd decides not to listen?
No, it's true, because at the end of the day, Bowles knows, like, if he goes with something that his clock management coach is telling him and it goes wrong or backfires or whatever, Bowles is still going to get criticized for it.
Right.
It's not going to be the assistant coach that gets blamed. It's going to be
That's
him.
right.
I'm certainly not downplaying the in-game management that needs to improve from Todd Bowles. But for me, the biggest thing I just want to see is the improvements and the adjustments with like certain coverages and how the defensive system is set up, in my opinion. And maybe it just was an issue last season of, well, they just don't have the guys at linebacker with KJ Britt and company. And Dean's injuries really hurt. I just don't want to see the Bucs keep losing the same ways that they've lost last year, which is dink and dunk, slice and dice, very off coverage, all that type of stuff, lack of turnovers, which sometimes you can't help that if your corner's just going to drop it every single time. That's a little bit more of a concern than necessarily the game management stuff, which is all very important. I'm not trying to play it.
Right.
Bucs Basement with another super chat, this one of $2. Thank you very much. Says, SR, can you confirm the Bucs will actually spend in free agency?
Yeah, they're going to spend. Is it going to be the big splash free agent that everybody wants or free agents? I don't know. I hope so. That should happen. At the same time, though, it's like you have to almost wonder, like, is Jason Light under the spell of Jason Light, right? Where he's been hypnotized by, you can get a quarterback for 1 year at $4 million in Baker Mayfield.
Right.
You can get an edge rusher, 1 year prove it deal, $5 million for Shaq Barrett, right? And it's like when those things hit and you get your franchise quarterback, your handoff from Brady to Baker, right? And And you get Shaq Barrett, who I don't know, in his first year in Tampa Bay, Pro Bowl, 19 and a half sacks, single season sack record, led the league. You get a little spoiled. But like, can that lightning strike again? I don't know. That's, hope is not a strategy, right? And so that's my concern. It's one thing to want to go and try to find the value guys and and in some ways, you know what? Zach Bond was a value guy for the Eagles. He signed a one-year prove-it deal, right? Yeah. And it turned out to be huge. So it's not just Jason Light that has that approach. It's also Howie Roseman, and Zach Bond's a prime example of that. So I think we're going to see some value free agents. I wouldn't be surprised if they do get one big-time free agent. They have a lot of holes on defense. You can't sit there and wait out the first wave of free agency, right? Correct. And then wait until day 4 or 5, and because the guys that could help you might be gone by then, right? So whether it's a Dre Greenlaw, whether it's a Travarius Ward, whether it is a Josh Sweat, a Zach Bond, I don't know. They need to go get one guy, I think. They got to fill one hole in free agency, I think. You can't rely on the draft and all those draft picks hitting. Done really well in the draft, but I do think they have to open up the pocketbook a little bit here and make a splash or two. I think this is the year to do it.
They definitely need to be aggressive early on because if they don't sign someone, other teams will.
That's right.
You're kind of left trying to find everyone else. Ethan O'Hara with the $4.99 super chat, thank you, says, do you guys think we should save money instead of paying Godwin and use that money for a defensive free agent?
No, I think points still win games. I mean, defense wins championships, right? But I mean, you gotta
get into points.
Yeah, you got to put points on the board too. I mean, that's how you win. So I think Chris Godwin wants to come back. I think the injury helps the Buccaneers cause a little bit. He probably is a little bit cheaper as a result of that now. He turns 29 later this month. There's still going to be plenty of room. And please go watch the video that Josh Capo did because it's fantastic and explains how all this can happen. And he's got some of the big names that you want to see Jason Light and Todd Bowles go get. He has that in the video, explains it exceptionally well. It's very well done. So, yeah, I think that they can do both. And Josh says they can do both, and I'm inclined to believe Josh, who's like our own Mike Greenberg. So, to me, you can still go out and get a big free agent splash guy, help out the defense, but you can still re-sign Chris as well.
Yeah, they have several options this year. It's not just like all or nothing with one free agency. That's the beauty of having a little more cap room this time around. LDBC's most wanted. Thanks for the $4.99. A pretty good would you rather type of question.
Yeah.
Would you rather draft Mike Green and spend big money on corner, or spend a first round pick on a corner and trade for a defensive end?
Oh man, Jason Light's track record drafting outside linebackers is not good. At some point in time, though, he probability has to happen, right? I mean, after all of the bad running backs he drafted, from Rojo to Keyshawn Vaughn and Charles Sims and Jeremy McNichols and all of those guys, he hit on Rashad White, who was a really good quality back. Then he hit on Bucky Irving again, and now it's just like a jackpot, right? With Sean Tucker thrown in the mix as an undrafted free agent. So at some point in time, the dam's got to break. I think he's got to find a good pass rusher. I think Yaya Diaby's a really good pass rusher. I think Yaya still can be a double-digit guy. He's just not there yet, and you can't bank on that happening right now this season. Hope it does, but he's going to be better when you have a real formidable guy on the other side. I think that's where you're going to see Yaya really rise up. So having said all that, I really like Mike Green. He's so good. I think I'd rather take the chance with a free agent cornerback like a Travarius Ward. It just those cornerbacks, those rookies, they read something wrong. They don't play the right covers. They make a bust, and it's a touchdown. I think it's a little bit more forgiving if you have a pass rusher that doesn't get home than you do on a rookie cornerback who's getting schooled. I mean, case in point, look what D-Hop, who did nothing right for the Chiefs down the stretch. But look what he did against Josh Hayes, an inexperienced cornerback on Monday night. Just ate him alive. So to me, I would rather take the chance on another good pass rusher like Mike Green and spend money on a really good cornerback to pair opposite with Zion McCollum. That's my thoughts, Matt. What about you?
Yeah, that's interesting because I feel the complete other way about it. I want to see a proven rusher, a proven commodity getting after the quarterback on this Tampa Bay Buccaneers team. They have not done a good job of drafting edge rushers. They found it via trade and found it via a free agency signing with Shaq Barrett back in the day. So I think, and we have a poll right now on pewterreport.com and our social media about how the Bucs will win the Super Bowl next season. And right now, getting a pass rusher or a better pass rush is what's leading the way in that voting. I also think, you bring in a pass rusher, they get after the quarterback. That's a whole nother element that the Bucs didn't really have last season.
Yeah.
And drafting a cornerback in the first round is a little risky, no doubt about it. But the Bucs' track record with defensive backs hasn't been too bad. Now, granted, some of it's been safety, but Antoine Winfield Jr. back in 2020. Tyke Smith has done a pretty good job. Zion McCollum took a little bit more development, but Zion McCollum did pretty well too. I'd rather just completely bolster up that pass rush and then figure it out with corner because you'll have Zion on one side. We'll see what happens with Jamel Dean. And also, the Eagles were able to get the job done with some rookie defensive backs. And one guy even had a pick 6 in the Super Bowl. So I think it is capable of getting that job done.
Yeah, if you hit on the right guys, Cooper DeJean and Quinyon Mitchell, both of those corners were just dynamite for the Eagles this season, And Air Cecil says what I think is spot on. It felt gross rooting for Philly, but I couldn't take any more Mahomes and Kelsey. Boy, I think that's very well put. I think that's kind of how I felt about it too. So I totally get that for sure. We've had tremendous growth this offseason already, and we had some great growth during the season. But the offseason, the month of January was tremendous for us in terms of growing our YouTube channel. We'd love to have you join and just hit the subscribe button. That's all you got to do to help us grow our channel. It's we're on the way to 18,000, right? We're at 17,500 just about. So we're almost 500 away from 18,000. Our goal is to get to 20,000 by draft weekend. So it's a lofty goal, but we're asking you, if you watch this video, hit the subscribe button. It's free, and it just helps us accumulate more subscribers. And then hit notifications too. Whenever we come out with a new video or go live with the podcast or an emergency podcast, you're going to get that notification to check out Pewter Report TV. That's our YouTube channel. So make sure you do that. It's also a great time in the offseason because we have a ton of free agency and draft news coming up. Nobody covers the Bucs offseason better than Pewter Report. For you to become a Pewter Report TV channel member, hit the join button on Pewter Report TV's front page. And it'll give you these 4 options to become a Pewter People member, a Pewter Pro member, a Pewter Premier member, or a Pewter Platinum member. 4 different price points to help us continue to grow our channel. It does take some money for all of us to go to Indianapolis for the scouting combine, but we do it because of the support we get from you all. So look at this as an investment in your Bucs coverage. We go to the Senior Bowl, we go to the combine, we get the scoop, we do the draft videos, we do the mock drafts, we do the interviews with the players that helps formulate who we're going to pick for our Bucs best bets, which y'all enjoy. So we'd love to help you help us out with regards to becoming Pewter Report TV channel members and growing our YouTube audience. One last thing is we also would love to advertise your business. So help your business score some new customers, advertise with us. Sponsorship opportunities are available. You can email me at sr@pewterreport.com, and you can join the ranks of advertisers that help support our efforts here, such as walk-ons. If you haven't been to walk-ons yet, make this week the week. And when you do, make sure you download their Walk-Ons Rewards app. You can earn, save, and win. And they're going to give you free mozzarella logs when you download that app for the very first time. So it's free to download, of course, free to use, and you get free mozzarella logs. Then if you try their amazing wings with their new limited time only Southern bourbon sauce, you're going to earn 100 bonus points just for doing that. So it's a great time to get to Walk-Ons, whether it's a day like today where it's happy hour from 3 p.m. to close, or all day happy hour on Tuesdays, including $5 Tito's. You can find some tremendous drink and food specials at Walk-Ons. They also have happy hours from 3 to 6 and 9 to close on Wednesdays and Thursdays. And Walk-Ons, 3 locations in the Tampa Bay area, down by Matera at Midtown Tampa, up here by me and Wesley Chapel, and then Lakeland. So make sure you find the Walk-Ons nearest you and check out the Walk-Ons menu.
Before we wrap up the show, we have one more super chat from Bucs Basement. Thank you for the $2. Says, if this season fails, Bowles and Light are gone? Question mark. Light definitely not.
Light definitely not.
Bowles Maybe. It depends on what happens. If it's a really bad losing season, probably a good chance. If they get bounced in the first round again, leaves a lot of conversation in the offseason. So it depends a little bit on the scenario specifically, but not a guarantee that Bowles would be fired if the season fails. It depends on.
Yeah, and also too with the defense, like does he fix the defense, right?
Correct.
And how much money and draft picks do they throw at the Bucs defense? And then can he put it all together? Can he and his staff of coaches? I like some of them. I don't like all of them. I wish that he would have made some changes with some of these guys. Maybe they proved me wrong, but I'm a big believer in player development. Coaching matters at all levels of football. And I'd like to see some of these guys really kind of reach their full potential. And I'm concerned that may not happen. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah. And lastly, shout out to Joel Elrican, who's been a Pewter Report YouTube channel member for 6 months and says, "Go Bucs." Well, thank you so much for your support, Joel. We really appreciate it. Always enjoy talking to you on this show and the Pewter Insider and everywhere else. So that's going to do it for us on today's show. If you're not already doing so, please follow us on our social media on X, Facebook, and Instagram. We're at Pewter Report. And our YouTube channel is Pewter Report TV. Please like and subscribe. Leave a comment below. Tomorrow's show, what can the Bucs learn from the Eagles? That's coming up at 4 p.m. The next day, could the Bucs run game get better in 2025? That's also at 4 p.m. Then on Thursday night, we got Bucs Make a Big Trade, our second mock draft show. And on Sunday, we're going to have another Bucs live mock draft with a gaggle of people, including Josh Capo and Adam Slavon from pewterreport.com. So that'll do it for us on today's show. For Scott, I'm Matt saying thanks everybody for watching. We'll see you soon for another edition of the Pewter Report podcast. Out.